Started our journey one step at a time. First, they opened a pawn shop. It was everything I knew and did. I loved my job, all of it. But no one could have guessed that behind those inanimate items were a bunch of strange things happening. Rick Harrison, who you may know from reality TV, was lying there weak and mumbling his last words. But at that very moment, a strange link opened that shook the whole system for investigating. In just a few hours, a chain reaction started. The files were opened again after a long time. Case files that seemed to be lost in time were looked through again. Then all of a sudden, Pelican Drift, a strange location in the Caribbean, was put on watch. In the dark, there was a raid. But what was found there wasn't a stolen item or a treasure. It was something that made people speechless. So exactly what did Rick say when he was crazy? What made the FBI change the focus of their investigation and even take it outside of the US? Prepare yourself. Because what you're about to learn could change how you see a character who used to be a TV star in the world we thought we knew. People used to think that Rick Harrison embodied the American dream, a man who came from nothing and worked hard to make a living from a small pawn shop. Along with his father, he started his own business, which was not easy. But all of a sudden, he became famous all over the world when the hit reality show Pawn Stars came out on the History Channel. For more than 10 years, millions of viewers have loved Rick for both his vast knowledge and his friendly, funny nature. He's like a smart, funny uncle to a lot of people who love history and always put family first. But there are quiet signs, things that have never been made public, that are there. The Pawn Stars name is bigger than just a TV show. He has become an unofficial icon of American pop culture, with more than 600 shows shown in more than 150 countries. He talked about money on talk shows, at history fairs, in books, and at investing forums. In the first 3 years of the show, the gold and silver exchange shops sales went up by more than 300%. In 2016, Rick's net worth was thought to be $9 million. However, fame comes with power. Rick is known for being so careful that he watches every show over and over again before it airs, looking at everything from the dialogue to the facial expressions to the editing. He doesn't want to be on any unscripted shows and strives to be seen as a smart, moral, and loving father. Then, all of a sudden, something that doesn't seem important comes up. In all 20 seasons, no one has ever brought up the fact that Rick has an adopted daughter. A small statement that doesn't seem important at first turns into the basis for a string of questions. The reporters soon started to ask questions. Observers' writings, tweets, and articles made it seem like something was going on that had never been made public. It started to look into a web of complicated deals, middlemen, and cross-border shipping activities. Even though there were no official conclusions, the case brought up a lot of questions and put the carefully built image of the perfect man to the test. What does the halo really mean? Or is there more to the story that has never been told? Was Rick Harrison just a victim of a misunderstanding? Join us as we go deeper into the story of an American reality TV star whose fame, power, and secrecy all come together to show a whole new side of her life. But the real twist in the Rick Harrison story wasn't found in financial records or business deals with other countries. It was in a quiet hospital room where something didn't seem suspicious. It all started with a whisper in the middle of the night. It was a whole different story for Rick Harrison, who used to think that any media trouble could be solved with a smart plan. The internet didn't forgive. The video went popular. Rick, he was in a daze in his hospital bed and saying something strange. A child is an island. Just 6 words, but they were enough to make Reddit, YouTube, and podcast boards go crazy. Criminal psychologists, linguists, and people in the online community started to figure out what every word, phrase, and tone meant. The most important question was whether this was a crazy outburst or a memory that came flooding back from the depths of the mind. A lot of people changed how they thought about Rick Harrison's past as soon as they heard the mysterious term. Things that didn't seem important at first, like shady foreign deals, strange calls to the Caribbean, and an island bought by a subsidiary, became very important very quickly. They all looked like they belonged together on a fuzzy map that was centered on an island that wasn't named. Rick was rushed to the urgent care unit at Valley Medical Center in Las Vegas early on April 12th. He was tired, dehydrated, and had a heartbeat that wasn't beating normally. Documents that were leaked say that he went into a light coma because of a lot of mental stress. When the doctors first got there, they were focused on the heart problem. But no one saw this coming. An unexpected detail would change the whole case. At about 3:17 a.m., Rick opened his eyes quickly and whispered something shocking. "A child is all by themselves." At first, the nurse thought it was just a sleep talk and wrote down the words on a note. But when she said it again in the morning meeting, the medical team couldn't look away. The sentence was quickly reported to the security department inside the hospital. A medical worker who wasn't on duty but also writes a blog about Nevada cases heard the story and shared it on Twitter. While Rick Harrison was barely awake in the ICU, someone says he whispered, "A child is an island." The tweet that seemed to be anonymous went viral very quickly. It got hundreds of thousands of shares in less than 4 hours. Accidents and losses that are consistent with the idea of being alone. Many experts were made available for study. Videos that were decoded began to show up. Podcasts talked to experts to find out what things really mean. Many experts say that people who are delirious don't always say stupid things. It's sometimes a way to get to the deeper parts of your mind. The ongoing money lawsuit was overshadowed by 6 easy words. A child is an island. It turned out to be the most shocking moment in the whole media circus involving Rick Harrison. It's not because of what was proven, but because of what wasn't addressed. The people was then left with just one question. Was this just a random statement? Or was it the last key piece that showed something deeper? There were a lot of theories going around on social media about Rick's strange comment, but something more serious was going on behind the scenes. Unexpectedly, federal investigators started looking into Rick's international shipping operations again. This time, they weren't looking into antiques or rare artifacts, but rather more sensitive information that had been mentioned in passing in cargo manifests. An old report that was thrown out 2 years ago because there wasn't enough proof was suddenly found. The study showed that a front company connected to Rick had broken a lot of rules, especially when it came to sending goods to the Caribbean through routes that weren't properly regulated. As a result of the hospital event, the FBI carried out a search warrant at Rick's Nevada estate, which had been used to store antiques. They found a vault with dozens of encrypted hard drives inside. Strange emails with phrases like "restocking the island in Q2, keep quiet about IS-1," or "new arrivals are prepared according to VIP criteria" were found on one of the hard drives that had only been partly decrypted. Experts took a different look at these lines that seemed harmless, especially when put next to Rick's strange comment that children are an island when he is half awake. A big question slowly came up. Was there something going on behind these economic actions that didn't seem normal? Was the well-known person who used to be known for knowing a lot about history and sales a part of a much more complex system? The 6 words that were said in the ICU room seemed to have set off a chain of events that the investigation could not unravel. Instead of just looking at bank records, investigators started to compare information about children who went missing in Nevada, Arizona, and California, where all of Rick's businesses were. The results shocked everyone. Some of the victims' disappearances seemed to happen at strange times for businesses that were connected to Rick. The issue had grown beyond unfair business practices and was now getting close to a social crisis. Over in the western United States, a federal task team carefully looked over all the missing child records. At least 23 cases from 2014 to 2022 had traits that matched data from Rick's devices. This was found by combining data from the FBI, NCMEK, and immigration offices. Worse yet, these victims often come from weak homes, like children in foster care, teens who have run away, or people who have been to rehab centers. Internal documents say that many of these cases were contacted by people who said they worked for charities, offered scholarships, or were recruiting for foreign programs. Because of these promises, they were quietly and quickly erased from the eyes of the law. "A child is an island" is no longer just a meaningless whisper. It's now the key to a much more complicated picture that forces authorities to look at the whole investigation system, from the financial to the human. April Langdon, a 14-year-old girl from Phoenix, went missing in 2016. This was one of the first cases that police looked into again. At first it was thought to be a runaway, but new information shows that might not have been the case. A cell tower near Rick Harrison's building picked up April's call just 48 hours after she went missing. The very next day, 2 days later to the day, a container with the number RH4981 and registered to a fake company with ties to Rick left the United States for the Caribbean. The outside of the container said that it held high-end sports tools and equipment for restoring old things. On the other hand, there were no shipping papers or records included. The fact that shipping records were not clear and the fact that this trend had been seen in at least 5 other cases made investigators pay attention. At the start of each case, a person went missing and then a container left one of Rick's stores. The place they went was usually a small island that wasn't marked on tourist maps and was registered under names like Sky Holdings, Bronze Needle Enterprises, or Seaward Ventures Limited, which didn't have an address, workers, or a clear tax identification number. There was one thing they all had in common. Rick was linked to many money moves between accounts in Switzerland and the British Virgin Islands. It wasn't that there was a plot to steal money that was scary, it was that there was a complex plan to hide not only money, but also people's names. The badly encrypted emails that were found on Rick's devices gave hints of strange behavior. Part 3 is ready, and this client would like it to be quiet. Is Part 1 ready? Investigators think that IS-1 is code for a place, like an island, and that batch is a code word for groups of people being moved. An outside research group found 7 of these shipments that left the United States between 2017 and 2021. They were all going to places with few or no tourists or people, including Pelican Drift, an island near the Virgin Islands that is completely empty. Rick used to own the island through a company, but the island had been marked as unclaimed by the local government for years. As pieces of information from hospitals, emails, missing persons files, and shipping records are put together, a strange picture starts to take shape. Not of old things, but of a complicated logistics system created by a well-known former TV star. As Rick Harrison once said, anything valuable should be kept. People are now wondering if the things that are kept are more than just keepsakes. People used to think the phrase, "a child is an island," didn't mean anything, but now it's the subject of a big investigation. The law has had to look into every possible angle because of a whisper. They have come to the conclusion that this may not be a normal financial case, but rather a mystery that has never been solved. What has gone missing in that riddle is not just an old thing. In the third part of the study, a horrible truth came to light. This was not only a secret network that used fake businesses and shipping containers, but it was also a digital trail that Rick Harrison himself left. Harrison was once admired as an expert in valuing things and an avid antiques collector. After making a vague statement in the hospital, Rick brought up another island. After 3 days, the FBI found a black notebook in the bottom of Rick's Las Vegas home, behind a steel door. The room was silent and had strict temperature controls, which made it clear that it wasn't a normal place to live. The notebook wasn't a personal log. It was a ledger, with careful and organized entries. Every page in the notebook was encrypted with unique characters, code names, birth years, nationalities, and strange characters such as IS-1, IS-2, or ISBH. These were later figured out to be the names of secret island locations listed under companies that are not legal entities. There was one item that was marked in red. Lot 12 will be shipped on July 18, 2021, via the PHX VGT EISS-1 path. On the same day, by chance, a private flight run by the company RH Executive Transit left Las Vegas for a spot in the Caribbean that was not made public. The records only showed goods and people, but the shocking turn in the case came when the cybersecurity team was able to decrypt a hidden folder on Rick's computer. There were movies from the surveillance system inside. Some of the videos showed dark, small rooms with cameras that were set in place. You could hear running water, footsteps in the distance, and a few quiet sobs in the background. It had a note on it that said, "Video code 149, SBF 14, person who won't cooperate move to a lower floor." As the experts dug deeper, they found a way to classify things based on their inventories. It was found that codes like RM, TQ, and SBF were like wirehouses, in that they represented actions, responses, and levels of compliance. It was scary how the symbols were used, as if these were not people, but things. An outside data researcher kept an eye on the SVM1 wallet and saw that it had received 14 small transfers, worth a total of more than $300,000 by September 2021. The deals were then sent to the destination, Pelican Drift, a private jet company. Rick used to own an island there through a now-defunct business. Witnesses who worked with Rick gave us the last pieces of the puzzle. A former assistant showed a hard drive with internal emails and flight manifests that she had kept by mistake. One message told them to hide our faces when we get to the port switch to quiet mode. Another warehouse worker, whose name was not given, remembered hearing strange noises coming from a box that said it was fragile and was shipped separately, but didn't have a tracking number. He asked his boss, but all he heard was, "The speaker is broken." All of this information, testimony, ledgers, internal papers, and surveillance video paints not only a picture of a case, but also of a system set up like a shadowy business, with rules, processes, and profits. But they don't trade things. Instead, they change people's lives. People used to think that the phrase, "a child is an island," was just meaningless talk. But now it's the key to a whole underground network that works through technology, legality, and media cover. This is not longer a scandal. It is a threat to the whole legal and moral order. And Rick Harrison may have told the world a story darker than anything shown on TV when he said, "Everything has a story and deserves to be preserved." Rick Harrison's name used to be linked to TV shows about smart and wise men. Suddenly, he is at the center of one of the biggest global investigations of the decade. His notebook, which has the code IS-1 written on it, is not only a very important clue, but it also holds the key to a lot of scary secrets hidden behind the secret name Pelican Drift. Rick has worked hard for years to have a perfect picture. But things start to go wrong when police follow the hidden notes in the black book. The codes, mysterious symbols, and notes that didn't seem to go together led the police to a small island 42 nautical miles from Antigua. No one thought that island would hold a cruel truth. Op Drift Fall starts on July 4th, which is Independence Day in the United States. The FBI, Homeland Security, the Coast Guard, and international experts from Interpol were all involved in the mission. Based on Rick's statements and information from the Black Book before the landing, the force had drones, high-tech surveillance tools, and a special search order. There were 3 separate military groups. Alpha came in from the south, where satellite images had shown that there was traffic on the water. Good Job from the north, where lots of plants hid many underground buildings, and Charlie, who kept the perimeter safe and set up communications. Soon after, one of the cops said, "We all felt like we weren't just going into an island, but into a scene that history would remember." Within 20 minutes, Bravo found a secret door that was hidden by rocks and grass on a steel plate. It had a small, dark, moldy cave under it. The more they dug, the closer they got to the truth that they could not believe. Steel doors, motion detectors, and cold cells with no windows are all used to hide all signs. They found 15 children in one main room who did not have IDs or clear names. Some people could only talk with shaky hands, worried looks, or words like, "No one will find us." People who were there felt that line really hurt them. Other teams found more strange areas, such as an evaluation room with a video camera, behavioral evaluation codes, and unique tools that aren't normally found in the real world. At the same time, the Alpha team stopped 2 ships that were trying to leave the island. 3 armed men and 3 children were stuck in the back hold of one of the ships. The other ship was no longer seen on radar because it went off into international seas just before the operation started. Charlie's team found what looked like a warehouse on the east side of the island. It turned out to be a communications control center, complete with hard drives, encryption devices, and complex data storing systems. The video was regularly shot over 3 years and showed that every few months, staff changed. 23 children were saved in total. There were no records for the other 7, so they could not be identified as missing in the United States. The other 2 were from Canada. Some wore bracelets with numbers on them, and others had faint marks on their skin that helped detectives from around the world. Doctors in the emergency room checked on the kids right away and started giving them psychological care. It took almost 5 hours to do the surgery. Many people on the team couldn't hide how they felt as the force left, taking the kids with them. When an experienced cop who had helped with rescue missions in the Middle East saw a little girl drawing in her cell, he broke down in tears. The picture showed a man's outline holding something that looked like a remote control. The black book, which had been a sign of hidden power, was now a live witness, revealing a system that had been hidden for years. Most importantly, it gave the little animals that had been forgotten in the dark a new chance. The FBI has made a shocking announcement that has shocked both the public and the investigators. In the critical care unit, Rick Harrison whispered something that didn't seem to mean anything. A child is an island. It turned out to be a complex coded message connected to a secret operation called Pelican Drift. The saying wasn't just something someone said out of the blue while they were crazy. It was like a key that let you into a much darker world than most people guessed. Rick Harrison is no longer just a suspect waiting for his trial. He used to be a famous TV host of a pawnshop show. Investigators have proven that he was a major force in building and running a real prison, with the help of his fame and personal wealth. It was IS-2. What about the third island? Like it says in the Six Islands notebook. It got even worse from there. A black leather-bound notebook was found in a hidden space under an industrial freezer in Rick's Las Vegas basement, which was even more shocking. It wasn't just a book of notes. It was a very thorough plan of a very complex network of operations. The steps for shipping, storing, and distributing the goods were carefully written out in code. Investigators got chills when they read one line in the notebook, "Is to construction confirmed, Q4. This wasn't just proof of a new site. It was also proof that the building was almost done. Financial investigation team looked at bank transactions from 8 months before Rick was arrested and found that more than $1,300,000, 0 cents, had been sent through a network of fake companies that were linked to a Filipino building company, which was thought to have ties to illegal operations in Southeast Asia in the past. There was finally a contract signed by Seaward Ventures Limited, the company that owns Pelican Drift, that talked about a place to stay and get better on an uncharted island. Late in 2023, satellite images showed that a new area of land had been claimed. It was about 40 kilometers north of the coast of Muro. The island didn't have a name and wasn't shown on any market maps, but there were clear signs of a helipad, and the box-shaped buildings were put up quickly and in a planned way. Infrared pictures showed 3 hotspots, which are signs of human habitation or protection. Even worse, the last pages of the notebook had a list of 9 people under the heading Transport to IS-2. There were specific notes next to each name, such as the words "No valid ID ready," $145,000, 0 cents internet payment, and a note that said "Heat shielding complete," made the mood even more ominous. Later orders included soundproofing, water filtration systems, and solar panels, showing that IS-2 was built to be a self-contained center that could work on its own for a long time without being found. As more proof came in, the FBI, Philippine counterintelligence, and international special operations units came together to make a task force. What is the goal? To find IS-2 and destroy it before it could run fully. They used GPS logs, shipping receipts, and weather reports to find 3 small boat supply runs in the last 6 days. This shows that most of the planning was done, it's still being looked into, and the truth is just now starting to come out. Who is in charge of the IS-2 if it is real, and how many more islands haven't been found yet? The 5-hour trips from Batangas City kept going in February, March, and early April 2024.